Brought to you by the Loves Gymnastics Network. Brought to you by the creator of this, Michaela Loves Gymnastics, and her co-host, Oscar, aka Gymnastics Saves Lives, Miss Shayna, and Ezra. And together, we bring you the Loves Gymnastics Podcast. Season 2 begins now. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We love and appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, bring more people into the community. It's NCAA 2025 time. Let's go, girls! And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Welcome back to my channel, Michaela Loves Gymnastics. Surprise. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My microphone is carrying on, so let me know if you guys can hear me. But today, friends, first of all, Happy New Year. Today is December 31st, 2021. Baby, we are almost in 2025. I mean, almost, bitch. We are here in 2025, bitch. I hope my friends and my followers and my supporters have a wonderful, wonderful 2025. I hope you get everything. I pray you get everything that you want, need, and deserve in this year. This is a year of abundance for us. I pray that your life is blessed and happy. I pray that you have no tragedies in your life this year. I pray that none of your family dies. I pray that none of your parents die or none of your children have any serious deaths or injuries. I pray nothing but abundance. I pray wealth into your life. I pray wealth into my own life. I pray wealth and life in abundance to us all here at the Loves Gymnastics Network. I pray that everybody stay safe, stay healthy. I pray that this upcoming political cycle, I pray that you can bear it. I pray that it's not something that you can't bear. And if it's just too much information for you to get into on a day-to-day basis, I pray that you have the strength to turn it off, to tune out, to go into your happy space. For me, that's gymnastics. And to thrive. I pray nothing but wealth, love, and abundance for each and every one of us, including myself. I pray that you all find love this year. And if you have love, I pray that you are able to cherish that love. I pray that your love grows. I pray that you and your loved one flourish. You are able to create a lifetime of memories together. I pray nothing but positivity, abundance, love, joy, and blessings into your life in 2025. And that's how I want to start our 2025, with abundance and blessings. Now, with that being said, we got a couple of gymnastics teas that we need to cover. And we are going to cover that. Y'all see the title of today's show. This is a solo show. Y'all see the logo right here in this corner. That's my face by myself because that's a solo show. So I decided that's how y'all when you can expect me by myself, you'll see this logo right here. When it's a Love Gymnastics podcast, you'll see the Love Gymnastics logo right there. Now, it all is the Love Gymnastics Network. So technically, it all is the Love Gymnastics podcast. If it's me by myself, hell, if I'm ever sick and it's just Oscar and Shayna and Ezra, it's still the Love Gymnastics podcast. But today, I promise y'all a solo show, and a solo show y'all shall get. So, the first piece of gymnastics news that I want to get into today is our good friend, Gabrielle Douglas. It's some more coaching drama going on with sis, and I just don't know how to feel about it at all. But I'm gonna just tell y'all how I feel about it. Shoot. I don't know how. I know exactly how I feel about it. One second. Let me get some water. So, on Gabby's athlete profile on USA Gymnastics, it still says her head coach is Valerie Liukin, but her gym that she trains at, they took Woga off of her athlete profile, which leads to us to speculate that she's no longer at Woga. But this is not the first time that we went through. Actually, I feel like this is exactly what happened last go round. So, going into 2025, people, I am off the Gabby Douglas and where she trains at train. Like, catch me when you head to national championships or American Classics or US Classics or the World Championships where I could cheer for you in your gymnastics. But this where she's training at, I just personally can't. Like, I just personally can't keep up with it. I don't want to keep up with it. Oh, excuse me. So yeah. And her teammate at Woga posted this. Let me find it, y'all. I'm looking for it as we speak. I'm so sorry. Okay, that did not result into what I wanted it to. So let me look for it this way. Palma Shinikova, there we go. This is what she posted, and she said that she wished Gabby would come back, also wishing her a happy birthday. This on top of USA Gymnastics removing Gabby from the Woga's gym leads us to speculate that Gabby isn't with Woga. Now that leads to the great speculation again. And I just said I wasn't gonna jump on this train, but what's the harm of doing it just once? Where would Gabby go? Everybody wants her at WCC. I want to see her at WCC. But Oh, yeah, that's right. I just dug into my nose. My bad, people. I just don't know if WCC is that girl for her. I don't know if, especially with Cecile and LaRon not being there no more, those are the two people I wanted to coach Gabby. I don't know nothing about these new people they got at WCC, so I don't know how that would work for her. If I'm just being honest, I want her to go back to Chow. I think Chow was the best coach she ever had. I think Chow just understands her gymnastics and her body. I hope she goes back to Chow. I hope that's the decision she makes. I doubt it after, all the things that happened between her and Chow, but that is just my great hope for Gabby Douglas that she goes back to Chow gymnastics. Stoy, everybody. Yeah, I got to get some water after that one. That was a good hit. So, the other piece of gymnastics news, and this isn't even gym news. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all knew this. I'm just late to the party. Did y'all know the Lorena Oliveira skill, the pike Arabian front with a half turn, that it got devalued under this quota points and it's only worth the E now? It's the same as the full twist and double pike. And if y'all go back in time, if addicts ever have those episodes up, that was my fear for this skill in the first place. And they absolutely did it. So this is the skill right here. If y'all can see it. There we go. That's Jordan Charles doing it. A piked Arabian double front with a half turn. And it used to be an F worth the same as a double layout. Worth the same as a piked Arabian double front. Now it's worth the E, worth less than a double layout, worth less than a piked Arabian double front, and worth the same as a pike full in or a tuck full in. So yeah, that's horrible. So that's all the. Oh, I got one more video. Hi, boy. Who is at Florida, posted her your Chinko 1.5. And that helps us to understand another reason why Florida wanted this girl so badly. Look at that. That's a great effing vault. That is a great effing vault. Make sure y'all can still hear me. Okay, so. Oh, y'all can hear me perfectly fine. Okay. So y'all ready for why y'all came here? We are going to do a reaction to the podcast, All Things Gymnastics. One of the most major gymnastics podcasts that there is. Their hosts are the two twins. They're sisters because they're twins. Ashley And I should have looked at that before I started. Anyways, Miss Ashley and the other one. And see, this is why them people don't like you now. Let me look for these people names. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I know one is named Ashley. Mm, 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 mm. Ooh, one is named Ashley. What's the other damn sister name? Anyhow, this is the podcast. These are all things gymnastics, right? What is named Ashley? The other one, I don't know her name. Okay, forgive me. I'm looked. I looked. I look. I'm still looking. I don't have an answer. Let me ask Google the damn question. Hold on, y'all. What are the names of the hosts of the podcast All Things Gymnastics? Of course, her name would be Brittany. Of course, why would it not? Why would it not be Brittany? Why would it not be Brittany? So the host of the show, their names are Ashley and Brittany, and they host Bueller. I think that's how you pronounce their last name. It might be Bueller. I think it's Bueller, and they are one of the major. If we're gonna say Gymcastics is the number one gymnastics podcast, I would say they're number two. I would say they're number two. Absolutely. And if you watch the Michigan meets, sometimes they commentate for the Michigan competitions. So you may know them from that. And with that being said, we are going to do a reaction to their podcast. Now, this is in podcast form, so we could just listen to it. So I'm sorry there's no video. Y'all just gonna have to look at me doing a reaction to this. It's an hour and 30 minutes. I can't promise that we're gonna listen to all hour and 30 minutes of it because I do want y'all to go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and actually listen to their show. And yeah, let's start. Can y'all not hear it? Do I need to play it from my phone? Yeah, I don't think y'all can hear it. I do need to play it from my phone, huh? Oh, no, y'all cannot hear. Okay.
Can y'all not hear it? Do I need to play it from my...
Okay, so let me play it from my phone. I'm so sorry, folks. I didn't miss nothing. It was just a minute. It's just a minute, child.
You guys know from listening to the All Things Gymnastics podcast every week just how incredible the sport is. But for young gymnasts dreaming of competing in college,
Ooh, I know how to make it real loud. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now, why didn't I think of all of this beforehand, Lord? I don't know. But we finna make this a hard one. Ooh, and if I do not find this picture, yeah, I'm not gonna do it. Let's just play it from my phone, child.
as challenging as learning a new skill. That's where Full Out Collegiate Recruiting comes in. With a dynamic team that includes former collegiate gymnasts, experienced club coaches, and a parent who has navigated the recruiting process with their own athlete who is now preparing for his first NCAA season, they're experts on what we discuss on the show, which is all things NCAA gymnastics and recruiting. But they know success goes beyond the gym. They help gymnasts find schools that are the perfect triple match: academically challenging programs that match their goals, gymnastics teams where they'll thrive, and campus environments where they'll feel right at home. They guide families through every step, from creating standout recruiting videos to connecting with programs that align with each gymnast's unique combination of academic interest, athletic abilities, and personality. They've helped countless gymnasts land spots on collegiate teams where they truly belong. So visit fulloutrecruit.com today. Don't let your gymnast dreams of the perfect college experience slip away. Full Out Collegiate Recruiting, your partner in the path to college gymnastics. Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Things Gymnastics Podcast. I'm Ashley. And I'm Brittany. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things gymnastics. And this episode is something we've been planning for a while, and we're excited to finally be able to share it with you all. We're calling this our NCAA Coaches Roundtable, and we'll be discussing 3 different topics, hot topics, if you will. And for some of these coaches, these are topics that are probably not new. These are things that are discussed every year at their annual coaches conference, but we've always wondered where the coaches stand on some of these issues. So,
can y'all hear it? Can y'all hear it? Let me pause it. Let me make sure we can hear it, because I would be so mad if we can't hear it. And of course, oh yeah, we can hear it. Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh, we can hear it really good. Okay. Okay. We can hear it really good. Thank you, Addicts, for this mic, brother. I still love it. It's sad that I got a computer and stuff to figure it out now that, you don't talk to me no more, but it's cool.
NCAA settlement and how that could impact the sport if gymnastics becomes an equivalency sport instead of a head count sport, rewarding difficulty and attempt to differentiate scores, and whether or not regionals should be held at a neutral site. So we talked to a lot of coaches for this. You'll hear from KJ Kindler from Oklahoma, Jay Clark from LSU, Owen Field from Florida, Liz Crandall-Howell from Cal, Bev Flockey from Michigan, Mike Rowe from Michigan State, Jeff Graba from Auburn, Janelle McDonald from UCLA, Carly Dockendorf from Utah, Vince Smurl from Stanford,
I told you they was
Jordan Weaver from Arkansas, Katie Minnesota from Eastern Michigan, Ashley Miles-Grieg from Iowa State, Marie Sophie Bogosh from Alaska, and Meredith Polisiewicz from Ohio State. Before we start, we want to say a huge thank you to all of the coaches who gave us their time and were willing to answer these questions. It can be hard to talk about something like the House versus NCAA settlement when there's still so many unknowns. And it can also be hard to share your opinion on something that is super complex and has a lot of pros and cons. Something that we learned from all of our conversations is that there is no one right answer. So we appreciate everybody sharing their perspectives. There's no doubt that each of these coaches are passionate about the sport and ultimately want what is best for the sport and their program. A quick little note before we get started. These are obviously not the full conversations, just highlights or notable quotes. So the full conversation will be available over on our Patreon page for our gold level Patreon supporters. If you're interested in that, you can check it out. We have a link in the show notes down below. So let's jump right in with our first topic, which is House versus NCAA. So we're not going to go too deep into the whole lawsuit as far as, why it's happening, the back pay that's owed to athletes. You can look that up. There's plenty of articles about it if you're interested. We're going to be focusing on gymnastics potentially going from a head count sport, which meant 12 scholarships, to an equivalency sport, which means that teams can have a roster of up to 20, but no more than 20. And then there's a set amount of money that can be divided up however the coaches see fit amongst the athletes on their team. From the conversations that we had with the coaches, it was really clear that the coaches themselves, and also they say for some of them, their athletic directors, still don't have all the answers in regards to this, which is crazy to me. Because we're talking about this potentially going into effect for next season. So there's still a lot of unknowns and it's not super straightforward at this point in time. But based on what we know, we wanted to give some background just so everybody has some context. So in May of 2024, the NCAA and Power 5 conferences came to an agreement to settle a lawsuit which will allow schools to directly pay student athletes for the first time in history. This means that schools will be able to set aside money to give out to all of the athletes within the athletic program at the school's discretion, meaning how the money will be divided up amongst the sports is up to each school and how they want to split their budget. However, it's important to note that Title IX will still be enforced as far as we're aware, so the schools will have to allocate the budget equally between men's and women's sports, but which sports specifically get the money is TBD. Like we mentioned previously, and you're going to hear this a lot throughout the conversations with the coaches, gymnastics was a head count sport and scholarships were capped at 12. But in theory, a team could have as large of a roster as they wanted filled with walk-on athletes. And we see that frequently. Schools that will have over 20 athletes. Like you could have 12 scholarship athletes, but the rest of your roster could be up to 25 with walk-ons. Yes, that will be no longer. Now, NCAA D1 schools, because this only applies to D1, could be able to offer a scholarship to every athlete on their roster, theoretically. It could be a full athletic scholarship, it could be a partial scholarship, but the roster will be capped at 20 for gymnastics no matter what. From our understanding, schools can either opt in or opt out of this. However, you're all in or you're all out. So for example, a school can't say we're going to opt in for football but opt out for gymnastics, or we're going to opt in for football and gymnastics but we're going to opt out for lacrosse. The school is either in and they're doing this or they're not, yes. And any school in the Power 5 conference is likely, it's not guaranteed, but very likely. From what I've read, the schools in the Power 5 conference are likely going to opt in. So that would be the Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC, and Pac-12, which doesn't really apply too much to gymnastics at this point. But other schools, say in the MAC, could opt out potentially due to budget constraints. And we believe if the school opts out, the current NCAA rules would still apply and they would still have 12 scholarships, we believe. So like we mentioned, there's obviously still a lot that's unknown right now, at least publicly, but it'll be interesting to see which schools decide to go for it. And like we mentioned, the proposal is expected to be finalized in April of 2025, meaning that schools could pay athletes as early as July 2025, which means next college gymnastics season. So keep that in mind as you're listening to these conversations. This is definitely the most complex topic, I think, out of all the ones we're mentioning here on this podcast today. Oh, I don't think, I know it is. There are a lot of angles to this. And so after listening to all of the coaches, we made a list of all of the points, the pros, the cons, and we grouped their comments together by point. So we're going to break it down point by point, talk about the different perspectives, and have the coaches' comments sort of intertwined. So point number one, the possibility that the rich could get richer. And by that, we're talking about how money could contribute to teams potentially stockpiling talent and potentially causing an imbalance that would make it impossible for certain teams to ever climb to the top. The concern here is that between NIL, which became a thing really in 2021, and wealthy athletic departments who can fund maybe 18, 19, 20 scholarship spots, certain schools will be able to stockpile talent, which gives them even more of a competitive advantage than they already had. Before NIL and everything that's happening now, like we mentioned, a team could only have 12 scholarship athletes on a team at a given time. So during recruiting season, some of the top athletes had to go to another team if they wanted a scholarship because school A might not have had a scholarship spot open. So the talent would be spread out a little bit more. An example that comes to mind, I'm going to speak vaguely here so I don't reveal who the athlete is, but there's a gymnast that's on a lower ranked SEC team who's pretty good. She was a little bit slower to develop to her full potential, but because of that, she only got scholarship offers from 2 schools. And a lot of the top schools that she was interested in actually canceled her visits because they had used up all their scholarship money already. So this athlete is now the star of a lower ranked team, but she might not even have went there if some of the other schools had money to offer her. And they didn't then, but they could now. And I will say with this change, we don't know how many scholarships will be offered, and it could vary from school to school. And I also want to be crystal clear that just because a school has a roster of 20, it doesn't mean that they're full athletic scholarships. We could see more athletes on partial scholarships or some kind of NIL money, or you'll hear a little bit later on, even academic.
Okay, I have opinions, and then we're gonna fast forward a little bit because talking. I understand perception isn't facts, right? But perception that's kind of how it is already. Perception is there's 3 or 4 schools that everybody wants to go to. And once those 3 or 4 schools give out scholarships and run out of money, then everybody is not forced, but explore other options at other schools. So, to me, it just feels like that's how it already is and has been for a long time in the sport. Definitely. Okay, because in the 90s, it was still 4 schools that everybody wanted to go to. Clearly, everybody wanted to go to Alabama or Georgia first. But then you also had Utah and UCLA that people wanted to go to. Then in the 2000s, it was Georgia, Alabama, UCLA, Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma came around in the 2010s, huh? Still Utah. Probably. But then you had a LSU and a Stanford and a Cal and an Oklahoma who was able to build their program, and LSU who was able to build their program from girls who wanted to go to UCLA, Florida. That's the other school I was thinking of. UCLA, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Once those 4 rosters got full, then OU and UCLA was able to pick up talent, and that's how they was able to build their programs, right? In 2010s, it became Florida, Oklahoma, still UCLA, LSU, and Utah. Georgia and Bama kind of fell off in the 2010s. Now, in the 2020s, is UCLA, Florida, Oklahoma, LSU, and then there's a greater drop off. So it's always kind of been that way, from my personal opinion. Now, I'm going to fast forward through that podcast. If you want the entire thing, please go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, and listen to the entire thing.
Academic scholarships, but the NIL money and the ability to potentially fund more athletic scholarships because an athletic department has the money and is willing to. In our opinion, that could be a disadvantage for some programs because not all schools are going to be able to offer the same amount of money to the athletes across the board. Something that I found really cool when we were talking to Utah head coach Carly Dackendorf was how she acknowledged the potential negative impacts that this could have on some of the lower ranked teams, even though she's from a top school who, you know, likely is going to benefit from some of these changes. Utah certainly has the money, and their athletic department has proven that they are willing to invest in their gymnastics program, but she didn't shy away from acknowledging that some of the lower ranked teams or some of the middle of the pack teams just don't have the same resources. So take a listen.
Most schools are not going to get 20 full scholarships. That's just not going to happen because that plays into not only the financial side, but also Title IX. That's going to be something that universities are going to have to be mindful of. You know, but if schools are getting 20 scholarships, I think we're going to see more segregation between the top teams and the middle teams and the lower teams, just because they're going to be the ones that have the resources and the money to continue to pull the top athletes to their programs.
The next comment is going to come from LSU head coach Jay Clark, who sees things a little bit differently. He talks about how he feels that there's enough talent in the country for everybody to reap the benefits of a larger roster, and he makes the point that people are going to go where they want to go regardless of money.
The argument can be and has been made that will allow the rich to get richer and that it will pull from other schools. I don't see it that way. Like, you know, Chase Brock has been here as a walk-on. This is where she wanted to be. She could have gone any number of other places. This is where she wanted to be. So she still wasn't going somewhere else, even if she was on her own dime. We've got kids from Arizona. We've had kids from Tennessee that walk on here. So I think that they're going to go to the schools they want to go to. And if the scholarship overrides where they want to be, then they'll go somewhere else. But the reality is there's enough talent out there, I believe, for it to be sustainable for us all.
So I understand where he's coming from. And to be clear, I think a lot of the very top athletes will continue to go to the very top schools. They always have. And there's also always going to be people who are willing to walk onto a school because it's their dream school. But I can't help but wonder if the pool of, you know, that 4-star and 3-star talent that the teams ranked 10th through 20th, I'm just kind of throwing out numbers here, you know, those teams are really banking on those athletes to build a competitive team. But those athletes in that pool could now also be getting dipped into by the very top teams because they have the money to offer them some sort of scholarship when previously they likely wouldn't have, like the example that we gave a few minutes ago. Yeah, so I would think about it like this. The very top schools, imagine that they have their own recruiting pool, because in a sense they do. I mean, the elite athletes, the 5-star athletes, some of the very top 4-star athletes, those are the athletes.
Yes, Shayna, they're really a good podcast.
Those schools are recruiting those athletes, but now they're also going to have the money to be able to get out of their pool, go over to some of the middle-ranked teams' recruiting pool and dip their toes in. So, for example, a school like Ohio State, you know, they're going after some of those top 4 stars, middle of the pack 4 stars, some of the 3 stars. The fear that I have would be that, again, some of those very top programs, you know, they're going to get their elites, their 5 stars, their top 4 stars, and then they're going to have some money left over to be able to go for more 4 stars, maybe even some of the 3 stars. And to be clear, they could always get in that pool. They could always recruit those athletes. But the difference is now they can and likely will offer money, even if it's a partial scholarship, which before NIL and everything that's happening now, they weren't able to do that. The athlete would have to come on their own dime, which some I think would be okay with, but a lot of them.
I hear what they're saying. I hear what they're saying. I just vehemently disagree with what they're saying. I 100% agree with what Jay Clark had to say. The issue that I have about what they are saying is that the middle of the pack gymnasts, now that the big schools are going to have the money to offer them the money, they're going to go to the big schools, right? My counter to that is, yeah, it may suck for some of the schools, but isn't that what you want? If your favorite 3-star elite can go to not UCLA. Well, UCLA is an example. Can go to UCLA, get a name for herself, go viral, and make NIL from that school. Isn't that what you want? Like, my issue with a lot of these conversations when I listen to bigger podcasts than my own is a lot of the podcasts seem to be so on the sides of these schools, which is fine. I mean, because without the schools, we would have no gymnastics, correct? So that's smart. I just am always going to be on the side of the girls and the boys too, but we're talking about the girls. I just think it's not better. Better is the wrong word. For those 3-star recruits, if they can go and fill up a roster at UCLA, at LSU, at Oklahoma, at Florida, at Utah, at Michigan, and get a name for themselves, and that still does not stop Auburn and Kentucky and Oregon State and Arizona State and Iowa State and all the other teams in the middle of the pack from getting people. Actually, now they have also, and see, that's the other part of it that they're not acknowledging. Now they have also more rooms and more scholarships to recruit more people too. Are they going to give the same scholarships that the other teams can give? Probably not. But are they still going to have money in their programs to give out money to? Absolutely. So it's a win-win for everybody, and that's my opinion. Let's continue.
They're going to hold out for getting a scholarship, and that's where you see some of those athletes go to different schools and kind of diversify a little bit. Yeah, I can't help but fear that some of the top schools are going to continue to recruit that top talent, but also, like you said, be able to entice some of the middle of the pack talent or the underrated recruits to come on some kind of money that they previously wouldn't have been able to, or they wouldn't have, which I think could have a trickle-down effect on the lower-ranked teams who are trying to recruit competitive teams but can't quite compete with the money or the prestige of the top programs. And we do know for certain that this is happening. And it's the name of the game. We're not necessarily complaining about it. We're just mentioning the points and the potential impacts, the trickle-down effect that could have on programs that are, outside of the top 15 nationally. Next up, we have a point from Ashley Miles-Grieg, who is the head coach at Iowa State. She talks about the financial side of things and how schools with less wealthy athletic departments are going to potentially have to get more creative with how they distribute the money that they do have amongst the people on their team.
The schools that don't have the ability to, fund 20 full scholarships for the Olympic sports, gymnastics in particular, are going to maybe have to start getting creative in how they look at things. I don't know if it's necessarily a positive or negative. I think it's like a haves and the have-nots more so, right? Like, what is that going to look like when you have a team that can have, 20 fully funded scholarships and a team that only gets 12 that might have to try to figure out a way to maybe spread those 12 across 20, or gymnastics has historically been a head count sport, right? So like, what does that equivalency look like? I think it's really going to depend on what institution you're at. And what their ability to accommodate, that max and what that looks like. Because you may have some that it's not even 12.
Katie Minnesota, the head coach at Eastern Michigan, mentioned this too. And it didn't make the final cut when editing this, but she talked about how they're going to have to figure out how to divide up what they do have so that everybody or most people can receive some kind of money. And I think that could be a positive thing. Some people might be on a full athletic scholarship. Some athletes might be able to get an academic scholarship, which would then leave some athletic money to go to somebody else potentially. So the strategies are going to be different for every team. Some of these schools might be able to offer more full athletic scholarships, while the smaller teams are potentially going to be trying to use other types of money like academic scholarships and trying to spread out the athletic money as much as they can across.
I have a point to make. Hold on. Damn peanuts. I absolutely agree with that point Shayna just made. Shayna said if they would still get 12 scholarships, they just wouldn't be as competitive. Exactly. Or do 10 full scholarships and 10 partial scholarships, but you still have 20 scholarships that you can give away. And the thing that I'm not going to say being disingenuous because that's completely not true. The thing that I just don't think they're highlighting on is not all 20 scholarships have to be full rides. A lesser school, let's say, it has to be a D1 school though, girl. I'm just gonna say Kentucky. Kentucky has a very strong football team, so I'm pretty sure they would go into this, but they're going to be stingy with how they allocate their gymnastics money because their gymnastics team just is nowhere near as strong as their football team or basketball team. They have a very strong football team and a very strong basketball team, right? So they would have to give out like 10 full scholarships and like 10 partial scholarships. But they're still able to give out 20 scholarships in total instead of just 12 in total. Like before, they would probably give out 8 full scholarships and 4 partial scholarships and have a bunch of walk-ons. Now with a 20-person team, they would just have to do 10 and 10. Exactly, Shayna. And you know what? Now, this is some bias that I have. And this is where I disagree with a lot of these other bloggers. I get gymnastics. It's for everybody, right? And I get gymnastics should be accessible for everybody. But in elite and in college, gymnastics is also a sport. So your best and brightest should always eventually rise to the top and leave the rest behind. And I think it's just not fair that in gymnastics, instead of encouraging everybody to rise to the top, we're more so like, we get it. You all can rise, but you can't rise above everybody else. And it's just not like that in other sports, in my personal opinion. Correct. So let's continue.
The team, which is something that they couldn't do before. Being from a MAC school, Katie did also mention how financially there could be a disadvantage with some of the money and how much they're allotted for gymnastics compared to top schools. But she backed up what Jay said too a little bit, which was the reality that an athlete is going to go where they want to go regardless of the money most of the time. This is the other end of Jay's point. You know, she's experienced athletes who ultimately turned down a scholarship at EMU in order to walk on in a larger program. And I think that's really just the reality of recruiting in this day and age.
We're not going to get 20 full scholarships. And that's going to hurt us because we don't have the budget for that. And it's not just us, it's a lot of the MAC schools and even some other like Eagle and that kind of stuff. So that will be negative as far as not being able to, I guess, compare to those programs that can as far as budget wise. But I mean, there's some people that are walking on to teams. We've recruited some athletes that are going to the top schools, and we're losing out on them as a walk-on. That we offered money, and they are going to walk on there.
Next, we're going to go to MSU head coach Mike Rowe, who has concerns not only with the playing field not being equal, but also with how these changes could impact Olympic sports in the NCAA at certain schools because they either aren't popular sports at their university or because gymnastics isn't a revenue sport. The fear would be the school eventually won't be able to afford to keep the program with the money that's being poured into scholarships for more athletes.
The playing field is nowhere close to being level anymore. It won't be, and it's because money has come in and taken, whether it's NIL or, the revenue sharing. From what I understand, there's Olympic sport teams and stuff at certain schools and certain conferences that won't even be considered for any of the revenue share, where other schools are, because they're high on the hog at their university or whatever, will be getting portions of that and large portions of that. And so it's just, that'll play into recruiting, and it already is playing into recruiting. And I'm not woe is me or anything like that. It's just changing the face of collegiate sports, at least Olympic sports, from here on out, and as we've known it. And I think in the long run, I'm afraid that it's going to eliminate a lot of opportunities, not only in gymnastics, but other sports as well, male and female sports across the board, that, schools will price themselves out of being able to carry 20 some sports, men's and women's sports or whatever. And when it comes to that, they may not drop the sport, but they'll gut it, and it'll be a club program or whatever. And, I'm afraid of that happening, but I'm hearing rumors of, or just rumblings of that happening around. So what is that? If for the sake of $1, for whatever reason, why wasn't the big picture, knowing that at some point this is going to gut other sports and eliminate opportunities for the youth of America that want to play sports that are going to be gone, are going to be club programs? I think that's sad. I think we're fortunate being in women's gymnastics because it has such a huge coming up an Olympic year, and not only because of that,
there's more of a fan base for it.
More of a fan base for it. There's more interest. There's more. Everybody's just waiting. Can't wait for season to get here.
I don't think so.
The appetite for women's gymnastics is just crazy strong right now. Attendance records being broken and all that. So I think that's great for us. I think we're in a good spot. But I'm not looking at just gymnastics. There's a lot of other sports out there that aren't going to have the same result.
Auburn head coach Jeff Graba kind of echoed the same sentiment. Like Mike, he mentioned that, he's grateful that gymnastics in particular is a popular sport, and that the popularity of the sport could be the only saving grace as we enter this new era.
Here's the one thing I feel is, when we go through this process, and we are going through a process, I don't know how it's going to end up. When we get to the other side, at least phase one of the other side of the process, gymnastics better be standing, because I think people are not seeing the writing on the wall that this is very scary for Olympic sports. I think it's a really, really positive thing that gymnastics is on TV right now a lot. We are selling out arenas. Our viewership is really good on TV. We have great non-linear and linear. That's like on the app, the ESPN Plus, and on ESPN and SEC Network. We have great viewership on that. So we are relevant. So if you're making monetary decisions in conferences and athletic departments, revenue sharing means monetary is moving. It's always been up there, but it's moving up the decision-making ladder. So I'm really happy that we are actually in a healthy spot. Our sport is, but it's going to happen. And I don't know if it's going to be a 20-person limit. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just glad that we're in the conversation of having a limit instead of not having a sport, because I come from the men's side, and I can see the writing on the wall if you aren't vibrant at the right time.
Do you think at all that it could potentially create imbalances across the country with some teams?
Now, if we're going to talk about the men's side, because I never took that into consideration. This is a gymnastics podcast, so we're going to just talk about the men's side. It may not affect the women's side of the sport very much, but the men's side of the sport is going to... There's already only, what, we said 15 teams that have a gymnastics program already. and they don't even play the men's gymnastics meets on TV, I just don't see that side of the sport continuing for much longer. It's just going to be very, very, very hard. Let's continue.
Teams being able to have, a roster of 20 5-star recruits and other teams not getting any because everyone's going to one team.
Yeah, I think that's real. I think that's a real concern. I also think it's a legitimate concern that smaller schools, revenue, travel, all of this stuff, how their budgets are impacted. I'm not just talking gymnastics, but if their football budget is impacted and they're trying to keep up with football, they have less to share with gymnastics. I just look back. I mean, I was at Utah State, I was at Utah, and I was at Hamline University, and I was a high school coach as well as a club coach. And so I've been in all the different avenues, and I can see that this is, look, whether we like it or not, it's going to impact all of us. I don't think there's really a way to say it's going to be good or bad for anybody. It will be different for everybody. I don't know that you're going to get 20 scholarships on a 20 roster limit. I have not heard anything like that. That's a lot of money. And the way the House agreement could go down, the way they have to differentiate how you revenue share is going to impact scholarships and NIL money for all sports. So I think it's premature to think that SEC schools or Big Ten and SEC schools or Big 12, Big 10, SEC schools are going to get 20 scholarships. They might get 12 scholarships and a 20 roster cap. They might get more than 12 scholarships. I do think it's a legitimate concern to know that if you're not in that conversation monetary wise and your athletic department is having to make that decision, it will negatively impact your program.
So another point, and something that we worry about personally with a 20 athlete roster limit, is I fear it could potentially take away opportunities for underrated athletes who want to go to their dream school, at least at some schools maybe. It just makes me wonder, like with a roster of 20, is a top school going to leave room for a walk-on? Someone that's willing to pay their own way, but maybe doesn't contribute to the team much score-wise, at least at first. Or right off the bat, will they be wanting to stack up with scholarship caliber athletes who can help them win a championship title? I guess it depends on the school and what their strategy is. As things currently stand, every school has usually several walk-on athletes on their team, even some of the very top teams in the country. But will we see that change with schools being able to offer money and having the ability to have more top athletes on their team? Like you said, will they leave room for those walk-on athletes that really, really want to go to the school, but maybe gymnastics-wise, they're not quite at the caliber? Mm-hmm. There's also the reality that some coaches are going to have to make cuts. I mean, looking at the numbers right now, Oklahoma has 21 people on the roster, or at least committed to be on the roster for the 2027 season. Georgia has 24 committed for the 2026 season, so that's next year, meaning that after this year, they'll have to cut 4 people from the team. They have 21 for 2027. Towson has 26 for the 2026 season and 24 for the 2027 season. And Ohio State has 22 for the 2026 season, and they're at their max with 20 for the 2027 season. And this is something that Ohio State's coach, Meredith Paul-Civic, touched on. For the 2026 season, Ohio State, with the people that they have already committed, will be at a roster of 22. So that's 2 cuts having to be made right off the bat. But then Meredith also mentioned potentially having a few people who want to come back for a 5th year as a redshirt that either now won't be able to, or somebody will have to get cut in order to make room for that person. There's also the people that she committed thinking about the potential that they have for the future, not knowing that she would eventually have to cut them. And it creates a really weird dynamic for coaches who love everyone on their team and want everybody on their team, but they're forced to say goodbye to them. And I also think it creates a weird dynamic for the people on the team, knowing that at the end of the season, people are going to get cut. I would imagine it's like Dance Moms, where you're constantly trying to prove yourself to stay as high on the pyramid as you can so you don't get cut. Right. And like, what does that do for the team dynamic? Granted, these athletes are used to competing for lineup spots and they're competitive people, but usually when you commit to a school, whether you're on scholarship or you're a walk-on, you're expecting that at the very least you have a spot on that team for 4 years. And so having time to, rectify the situation and do things differently for the future, and you recruit with the new rules in mind, that's something that Meredith touched on as a coach who is now going to be faced with having to make cuts for her team.
My only wish was that they would have given us 2 years to rectify the situation. If I have a couple of people that have a redshirt year that want to stay, now for the first time in my life, I'm going to have to make cuts. Right. And it's brutal because I am very close with my team. I spend a lot of time with them, and I do invest. And so I think the first year or two is just going to be brutal for me personally, because I have not really made a lot of cuts in my lifetime. And I think that's going to be really hard, and especially when you bring people in cases of potential. I mean, look at the JoJo Wargas of the world. It took her a little while to hone in on the right beam routine that was going to be good for her, and she's phenomenal now. And what if I had to cut her after her freshman year? When you have a staff like ours that we really enjoy coaching, being in the gym is our favorite thing, and watching kids go from a handspring tuck front to a pike half and teaching gymnastics is been something that we've really loved. I mean, look at the Ella Hodges and Alexis Hankins, and those people have been our pride and joy at Ohio State, and so it will make it more difficult to take somebody if they immediately don't have a 9-9 impact on at least one event.
So this next point is something that several of the coaches expressed, and it's that this could increase financial opportunities for recruits or transfers. For example, for athletes who are not going to be on a scholarship at School C, they might get an opportunity at School F. I think we're going to see middle-of-the-pack teams picking up some of the underrated talent that might be overlooked, whether that be in the initial recruiting process or even through the transfer portal. And that could result in financial opportunities for the athletes that might not have otherwise gotten a scholarship. So I could see this as a potential upside for some athletes. Yeah, and we'll start with Florida Associate Head Coach Owen Field, who talks about the growing number of elite and level 10 athletes who could benefit from schools being able to offer more scholarships. And he also touches on the idea that people who get cut from a team who is over that 20 limit could potentially transfer to another program to either retain or maybe even earn a scholarship.
There, on paper, will be a lot more scholarships available, right? So there's a quickly growing number of high-level, level 10 athletes around the country. And elite athletes. And I think that more of those individuals will be able to benefit from the financial side when it comes to having their education paid for. Because like if we end up going up to 20, like they're talking about, then like you're talking almost doubling each school scholarship amount, right? Like you're going from 12 up to that higher number. So I think that provides a lot of benefit for the individual student athletes from that sense. There are some teams around the country that have over whatever that number is going to be, if it's 2018, whatever. I mean, and they're going to most likely have to make some tough decisions, right? But I think at the end of the day, it could end up being a positive for some of those athletes because they will have the ability to go somewhere where they might be able to receive some kind of financial compensation for going to school instead of having to be a true walk-on and pay for it themselves.
And that's why I love Owen Fields. That's why I love Owen Fields. Owen Fields, when you watch this on Twitter, just know that I love you, friend. And I 1050% agree. One thing about the sport of gymnastics that always just baffled me is they're just so damn unwilling to change anything. We complain. And then when a change is made, we are still fucking complaining. And how is this change going to affect everybody? Yeah, some people going to get cut. But guess what? If they get cut from, let's say, Iowa State, maybe they can go to Townsend on a full ride. It's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. And I just don't look at this situation in that way. I'm listening to it on Spotify, and I don't know how to fast forward, so that's the only reason why I haven't. If I was listening to it on Apple, I probably could, but I don't have an Apple device right now, so I can't. I don't have any Apple device at all right now. Not my tablet, not my phone, not my laptop. Fuck you, Apple. Okay, let's go.
They are in their current situation. So
Oklahoma head coach KJ Kindler mentioned that she feels like more athletes in the development program will kind of stick it out if they know that there are more opportunities for them to get some kind of scholarship somewhere.
There's going to be more athletes, to me, sticking it out through the age group program, knowing that there's possibilities for them to earn a scholarship. Even if they maybe didn't get one initially when they go to school, they might get 2 years, they might get 1 year. There are going to be more opportunities to be financially set as a gymnast than there ever have before. So for me, it's quite positive.
Jay Clark has always been in favor of a scholarship increase. He mentioned the increasing number of level 10 athletes who end up as walk-ons but could now maybe get a scholarship somewhere. He also makes the argument that, if these changes do actually come, that the schools could expand their recruiting horizons to look for more event specialists. Those people who are really good on an event or two, but maybe aren't considered all-arounders, instead of them just recruiting all-arounders like they're usually looking for with a limited number of scholarships.
I think it's a positive thing. I think I've been an advocate for larger roster size for a long time and scholarship increase. I didn't know that it would potentially go to 20. But the last time we had a scholarship increase was in 1995 when we went from 10 to 12. And in that time, we've seen other women's sports have 1 or 2 increases, and we have not. Also in that time, around 1995, and I don't have my numbers exactly right, so I don't want to be fact-checked or anything, but we had roughly 11 or 1,200 level 10s in this country. And now, in the last several years, we've seen that number be over 4,000. So it was time for an increase of opportunity. And in a sport where there's 24 competitive opportunities in any given meet, the argument could be made that we needed to be able to do that and allow people to broaden their recruiting horizons and be able to say, hey, this kid's got 2 events that are really, really good, or 1 event that's spectacular. They may not be an all-arounder, but with 12, you're constantly looking for the best all-arounders you can find, because you don't want to. If you run into a rash of injuries, you're in trouble. So expanding it is a great thing, I think, for the growth of the sport, for the popularity of the sport. I think it opens up. Well, there's a lot of really good level 10s that have not been winding up on scholarship, and they wind up in a walk-on capacity and paying their own dime. That should.
My perfect example is Lily Smith. We just talked about her in our NCAA previews. There's no reason why she should be at Georgia. She should be at LSU. She should be at Oklahoma, or she gives me Oklahoma, Michigan tees. But scholarships. Now, if they had a bigger team, sorry, Florida, Georgia, sorry, Cecile, you wouldn't have got her, but Mama would have had opportunities that she just did not have before. Hashtag more scholarships. Let's continue. And Happy New Year's, everybody. Hey, Ezra. Hi, Shayna.
Howell, who touches on how these changes could mean more financial opportunities, but also mean less spots on D1 teams when you really think about it. So, like we mentioned off the top, there are a lot of D1 schools that historically carry a large roster, largely with walk-ons who now have to hope that they can find a spot somewhere else, or they have to retire. Rutgers comes to mind for me. There's years that they've had almost 30 athletes on their roster, and they have walk-ons on their team who otherwise wouldn't have been able to go D1 if it wasn't for them offering a spot on their team. An example that comes to mind would be Ginger Richards, who we had on our show. Rutgers was really her only chance of being a D1 athlete. So by limiting Rutgers to 20, people like Ginger likely wouldn't have received any D1 offers, even as a walk-on. So while it's increasing financial opportunities for some, is also simultaneously taking away the opportunity to be a D1 college gymnast for others. So that's something that Liz brings up.
Ultimately, we want more opportunities for women.
And so one of the downsides of this roster limit situation is that it's going to limit opportunities for women just to the 20. One of the upsides, I think, though, is that, you will be able to give more financial opportunities to more people. That probably will look different in a lot of different places. Some people will have 20, some people will have anything in between that. There's also a lot going on with the House settlement that is not.
I'm so sorry. I guess this is going to be a long one because I don't understand what I'm trying not to curse. I don't understand what they're talking about. How can it be less opportunities when there's literally more spots on a team? Oh, so I guess okay, let me think about it a little bit harder before I get upset. I guess what they're saying is if you're not good enough to get a scholarship, you still always had an opportunity to make a team by being a walk-on, and you got to, say you were a D1 athlete, even though you really shouldn't have gotten to be a D1 athlete. So I guess the theory is that the team is only 20, then a team like Rutgers, who isn't a top team anyways, would be like, hey, come just sit on the sideline and say you're a D1 athlete. They can't do that anymore. And to that I say, good. Let's continue.
Exactly, which that will, it's all going to be in flux of what that looks like and how much flexibility will be, within your scholarship allotment to move things around. It also shifts gymnastics to an equivalency sport. Well, it shifts everybody to an equivalency sport, which currently we are head count. So 12 scholarships is all you can have. And then they're all full scholarships. And so when we shift that to equivalency, again, people are going to get creative about the way that looks on their team. So it will provide more financial opportunities, although not as many actual opportunities for gymnasts, for female gymnasts.
Like you heard Owen mention the potential for transfers, we also mentioned the schools who will have to make cuts. Bev Flockey from Michigan talks about the possibility that schools could benefit from some of those transfers out of the top programs like Georgia or Oklahoma. And she also talks about late bloomers, whether it's a recruit or a transfer. There's always those athletes that go under the radar, but they end up doing big things once they get to college and they kind of settle in a little bit. And there's going to be more opportunities for those athletes to go somewhere else, get a scholarship, and potentially be able to even compete more.
I hesitate to even have an opinion about it right now because we're learning as we go. Some people, it seemed kind of obvious, went out and signed a whole bunch of people. I think others have paid a little bit more attention to, okay, I don't want 9 people in one class, So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the portal opens again this year. Teams that had more than 20, what's going to happen with those people? Some teams are going to have to cut athletes to be at 20 who are going to be the beneficiaries of some of the movement with some of that. And there's, in every class, there are the late bloomers that come upon the scene that people didn't pay attention to or recognize.
This next point is a really interesting one, and that is that this could potentially limit competitive opportunities for top athletes lineup-wise. I think depending on the team, obviously, but even the top athletes could have less competitive opportunities because only 6 compete in each lineup, and you have 20 really good athletes on a team. So it begs the question, will it be hard to be an all-arounder on a top team? Will there be more people standing around? I fear this could be a situation where you have more people that are getting the opportunity to be a part of a D1 team and maybe getting some of their school paid for, which is great, but it isn't guaranteed to translate into a lot of competitive opportunities. I thought it was interesting. Liz Crandall-Howell said that she didn't see the roster increase as an advantage. And when we asked why, she pointed out that only 6 compete, which obviously but there's all this talk about increased opportunities that you almost forget that this could actually mean less opportunities for really good athletes, depending on where they go if they don't get the chance to compete in multiple lineups every week, because the team that they're on just has so much depth. And I think that's really an issue that only the very top teams are potentially going to be facing, where you're going to have people that would be an all-around star at most programs in the country, maybe just hoping they can crack into one event at one of these top teams.
I think that will be an advantage because some teams might have, like, be able to have more athletes, more of the top level athletes, but only 6 people compete on that. And so the more athletes they...
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, I know Shayna is here. I know Ezra is here. I know Nisha is here. I know RJ is here. Hi, friends. Happy New Year. When you rewatch the show, I hope you all see the prayer I have for everybody. And I hope you all accept that into your soul because I really mean that for everybody. Right now, we are reacting to, as the as the title says, the All Things Gymnastics they did. A series of all the head coaches of the schools, and they put a compilation together of our coaches roundtable. May I say though, there has been a lot of roundtables, but there was a podcast called We Love Gymnastics who came up with this roundtable. I'm just joking, everybody. I'm just joking. But please go and watch We Love Gymnastics or listen to We Love Gymnastics on Spotify or Apple's. It's still up. And I hope Addicts keeps it up because I want y'all to always have it. Okay, let's continue.
that you have on your team, the more people are competing for those spots and the more people who are not going to be on an event. Everybody's going to have to prioritize what they think is the most important. There are pluses and minuses with either side.
This point was also brought up by Utah's head coach, Carly Dackendorf.
You know, at the end of the day, 6 only get to compete. So you have 20 stars on your team, but you still only get to put 6 up. So I think you could see some athletes, you know, committing to schools, and then they may or may not get the same amount of time competing as they would if they were at a different program.
So I think with this point, Oklahoma comes to mind for a lot of people, especially with the very large class that they just had commit for the class of 2026. Here's a perspective that Oklahoma head coach KJ Kindler shared about having really competitive lineups and how the athletes might feel about it.
I think you have to put extra energy into the dynamics when you have a big team like that, no doubt. And what you're saying is, yeah, is it going to be difficult to get a lineup spot? Yes, but you also have more people in the gym pushing you and pushing you to your absolute best. I think that's something people are really overlooking. Like, if I'm an athlete, I want to be pushed to be the absolute best. I want the challenge to be there. I don't want it to be easy peasy, I'm in, you know? I want to know that I had to fight for that and I got it. And that's a huge accomplishment without even competing. So, you know, when you're on a team like that and you're pushing, everyone's pushing to be their very best, you're going to achieve a lot personally as well as collectively.
Another potential upside for larger rosters is more depth so athletes can rest, which is a very, very positive thing. I know a lot of schools that would love to have more athletes on their rosters so they could rest some of their top options on a weekly basis. Yeah, whether that's, you know, because of a minor injury or just giving somebody a break. Liz also mentioned this. If you have an athlete who's going down the elite route and it's an Olympic year and they want to defer, the program will likely be in a better position to be able to swallow that loss because they just have more athletes on the team. And we saw this a lot with UCLA last season with Emma Malabuyo. She missed several meets during the season because she was out doing elite competitions trying to earn her spot for the Olympics. And those weeks that she was gone, UCLA struggled a little bit because they didn't have people on their team that could quite step in immediately and bring in the scores that Emma was bringing in week after week. So that's just another example of it. But here's what Liz had to say.
I do think that it is going to allow for a lot of our international athletes who are continuing to compete for their countries or for the U.S. A bit more flexibility to defer. Like, you know, if they're one of your 20 and you have somebody who's going to sit out to train for the Olympics for a year, being able to have more people on your roster to support whoever isn't going to be there, I think that that's definitely something to think about.
The last point that we're going to make on roster size is managing the team with a larger roster size and the impacts that it could have on team culture. Liz said she prefers smaller rosters culture-wise, so take a listen.
I think we have never wanted a very large team. It just kind of, I think personal preference of our staff, that we have felt like the culture that needs to be supported is easier to keep connected when there is a smaller roster. I don't know.
Shayna, Ezra, Nisha, RJ. I 100% understand that point that they're making, that it's only 6 spots, right? You don't need to use all 20 scholarships, right? You can still use 12 and give your top 12 girls full rides and save the school money. Is that not an option? Let's continue. I need to get some water. I'll be back.
To go all the way to 20. I don't know that we wouldn't, and it's kind of going to be on a case by case basis of what we feel like our team needs at any given moment.
Janelle McDonald, head coach at UCLA, said that she has intentionally tried to get her team smaller because she feels like it helps her to have more authentic relationships with each member of the team.
For me, we had 20 athletes on our team the first year I was here. We had 19 last year. We have 19 this year. And I actually was intentionally trying to get our team a little bit smaller. I think that 17, 18 mark is probably, I'll do whatever feels right. But like at the same time, I was more intentionally trying to be around the 18 mark. And so I am just like so grateful I don't have to have a conversation with anyone about roster limits.
Yeah.
So but there are, there's a lot of people around the country and in every sport that has to have these really hard decisions and really hard conversations. And so right now I think it's a hard topic because there is a lot of heartbreak and hard times through it. The reason I want to be around 18 is because I think I can have more authentic relationships with my athletes if I'm around 18. Doesn't seem like 2 people would be that much more, but it is more. And so, just having a team of 18, I've coached teams of 17 before, and just kind of knowing that difference, it's really important to be able to give the athletes on our team the best experience possible.
And then last but not least, Mike Rowe brought up that there will be hopefully less distinction between scholarship athletes and walk-ons, and this could lead to everybody feeling like they're equal on the team, which I also think is a not talked about aspect of this that's really important.
I think we pride ourselves in there's no distinction between walk-ons and scholarship student athletes. I think with this roster cap right now, I think that'll make that more of a level playing field for the team where everybody's getting the same kind of thing, or people are trying to treat it as that, which I think that'll be better with not team bonding, but just the pulse of the team and keeping a good solid core, as opposed to such and such kid being on scholarship and huge NIL contracts and other kids, what about me, not doing anything. You have to invest your own person and your own time and your own for these NIL opportunities. People aren't quite like that, but still don't get why.
Was that Auburn's coach? Because you would know, wouldn't you? And if that was not Auburn's coach, you would know, wouldn't you?
The NCAA and Power 5 conferences came to an agreement to settle a lawsuit, which will allow schools.
Oh, shit. Well, if I could rewind it, why can't I fast forward through it? Hold on. Oh, shit. There we go.
Personally, like Ashley mentioned, I just thought it was so funny because, as an athlete, Ashley herself did a really glorious double layout. And after she mentioned that it's really hard to do that week after week after week, I asked her if it was difficult for her to do it week after week after week. And she was just like, no, Like, she's like, point blank, no, it wasn't. Like, sorry about it. So the juxtaposition was funny because I think it ties into our next point about difficulty being subjective and dependent on the individual athlete. One of the cons of changing difficulty values or requiring more difficulty is that it puts the term difficulty into a box. Like, here are the things that are difficult and nothing else is considered difficult. Alaska head coach Marie-Sophie Bagash brought this up, and until she said it, to be honest with you, I hadn't really thought about it this way. So I really appreciated her perspective. Take a listen.
I'm definitely in favor of rewarding difficulty and uniqueness, but I'm even more in favor of allowing each athlete as well as coach to exploit the code to a certain degree to really showcase each individual's strength, because there's plenty of transition releases or elements on bars that are just as difficult or maybe even more difficult than a single bar release. And there's also some beautiful artistic elements, dance elements on the floor that are maybe even more difficult than an tumbling pass. And not many gymnasts in this entire world can perform that even. And so I want to preserve that ability to really showcase and highlight unique skills across the board, as well as allowing the gym.
Girl, you're the head coach of Alaska. You shouldn't even have an opinion on difficulty, girl.
Into, in my opinion, two simple terms of saying a single bar release makes a routine difficult or an tumbling pass is what makes the routine automatically more difficult than a certain other routine.
So I thought this was a really, really interesting point. You know, is there a skill, maybe other than the Yurchenko double pike or like a triple double? I mean, yes, there's going to be some skills that are, I'm assuming you're going to say universally difficult. Yes. And in the elite world, I think for sure. But in terms of college gymnastics and what we typically see, is there a skill that is universally considered difficult? And again, I think it depends on the athlete individually to answer that question. Sierra Brooks, a former Michigan gymnast, comes to mind for me. She did a full twisting double layout off bars, and she always said that it was easier for her to do the extra full twist compared to just doing a double layout. For most athletes, adding that full twist would lead to more inconsistencies with the landing. It would make the skill harder. But for Sierra, it made her stick rate higher. It was like reverse of what you would think. Right, exactly. A skill that you hardly see done in the NCAA because it's so difficult to, stick on a consistent week-to-week basis. At least for most athletes, you have an athlete like Sierra Brooks that's doing that skill because to her, it's easier to stick it compared to a double layout that is almost compulsory in college gymnastics. There's also the athletes who excel with the dance elements. You might have an athlete who couldn't even think about doing a double layout on floor, but could do really difficult turns or leaps like it's nobody's business. So is it really fair to single out certain skills as more difficult when in reality, difficult is ultimately an opinion? There's also the argument that some teams would be at a disadvantage because they have competence and proper equipment to train more difficult elements consistently. A few weeks ago, we went to watch Eastern Michigan practice, and we talked to Kate.
Okay, see, but like, I'm trying not to just be like, I disagree with what they're saying. I'm just giving, okay. It's not that I disagree with what they're saying. I'm just giving my opinion. So there's no agreeing or disagreeing because there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just giving another opinion, right? And my opinion is, as the fans, that's where I'm coming from the fans' point of view, we want it all. We want the hard leaps, we want the hard tumbling passes, and we want the hard spins. The NCAA has gotten away for too long to being too easy. The whole men are doing the same elite routines that they got going on for national championships. Those are their college routines. Am I asking the girls to do that much difficulty? Of course not. No. Can we step it up to like 1988 though? Can we step it up to 1988 and take it out of 1978 where it's at now? Like, that's all we're asking as the fans. Like, just progress it a little bit. Hey, Oscar. Yes, just progress it a little bit. Like, I would rather the girls give me 3C tumbling passes than 1E tumbling pass and a bullshit ass final tumbling pass with nothing in between. Like, I would rather the girls start off with whip, double tuck, second tumbling pass, round off 1.5 through to a double twist punch front, ending with a double pike over these. Well, y'all don't even do double layouts as first tumbling passes. Over these double pikes as opening passes, switch leap full, wolf jump full, front layout, front full, and tumbling passes. Like, it's just, and those routines are getting 10s. Whereas girls who doing like Arabian double fronts, front 1.5 through to a front full, ending with a double tuck, are getting 9.8s and 9.9s. There we go. That's another example of what we're talking about, people, is the double twist in front, the Gojia, the Gojia slash Ferraris that aren't nowhere near either one. A girl could start with a double layout, do a punch front through to a double tuck, in with a full land, and get a 9.75. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for 2024 gymnastics. We're not even asking for 2012 gymnastics. We're not even asking for 2004 gymnastics. All we're asking for is 1988 Olympic Games, where the girls was opening with double layouts and ending with double tucks and doing like whip back, double back somewhere in the middle pass. Like, that's it. That's all we're asking for. The 80s. Like, Sabrina Bonnier mother was doing harder tumbling passes in the 80s than half of y'all girls are. I don't know if my audio keep going in and out. I know there's something wrong with my microphone, like the cord has a shortage. Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody, that the audio keeps going in and out. I don't know what. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe that's the Lord telling me to talk less and get through this interview. But balls. Yes, we got the girls doing your Chinko 1.5. But pipe front halves, that wasn't even worth a 10 in 1996. But I said 1980, so it was a 10 in 1980, so I'm going to leave that alone. But so was your Chinko 4. So for vaults, all we're asking for vault is 1996. For floor is 1988. For vault is 1996. For balance beam and uneven bars is 1992. So those 3 cycles, that's all we're asking for. Like, we're not asking for a lot. So let's continue, because I just went on a whole 20-minute rant for no reason. Y'all are saying y'all can't hear the podcast. Can y'all hear me right now? Can y'all hear me right now? I need answers. Can y'all hear me? Hold on, I can tell. Give me 1 second.
Doesn't seem like two people would be that much more.
Can y'all hear me louder now? Yeah, because I had, okay, I know what happened. I knew what happened when I did it. I just don't want to tell y'all because I'm embarrassed. Let me see how loud. Oh, let me see if it's this. Is it better now? It is still a lot more quieter than it was. Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. The Yurchenko with a half turn or the layout Arabian vault was a 10.0. The same with the Yurchenko full. When they devalued the Yurchenko full, they devalued the Yurchenko layout half. So whatever year they devalued the Yurchenko full, I believe in 2018, I think they devalued the Yurchenko full. That's the same year they devalued the Yurchenko layout half. Thank you. But I think the Phelps technically is still a 10.0 vault in college. If a girl did it. Okay. And the children are doing fireworks now, so Y'all keep saying that y'all can't hear the podcast. And I don't know what's the tea with that. Let's see. RJ said it sounds like it's very far away from the mic. Okay, let me see what it sounds like. Then let me try to fix it. Oh yeah, that's low as fuck. Okay. My bad, folks.
Don't separate because we end them up. We talk out of both sides of our mouth a little bit. Like we want separation and we want reward for difficulty, but we dumb things down to the point where there can be no real separation. So we have to decide. This is where it's one of the greater frustrations for me every year is that it's this constant conversation that's been going on for 20 plus years, and there's no solution to it. As long as there's subjectivity in the sport, which it inherently will have, there's going to be controversy. So the question is, do you want the best team in the country, whoever that is in a given year, to be able to count a fall like Simone Biles can and still beat?
Hold on, I'm trying to see what it sounds like. I'm very, 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 very worried about the sound now.
Beat everybody because she's rewarded for the amount of difficulty that she does? Or do you want that team to know that as soon as they have a break that they have to count, the odds are they're going to lose to a lot of people, regardless of what they do in their other routines? That's kind of where we are. So I wouldn't argue one way or the other. I think, for me, that whole argument is not something we should be focused on anymore because we're in a situation right now where NIL and revenue share and all this stuff has come in, and it's going to threaten the very existence of 30 plus percent of our programs at some point. And if we don't stop bickering about judging and this stuff here, when right now we're at an all-time high popularity-wise on television and everything else, we're focusing on how do we improve the value of our program on our campus and in our community. I'm not talking about TV ratings nationally. I'm talking about your footprint in your community and on your campus. That should be the number one overriding anything goes thing we have to focus on as coaches, as administrators and everything if we want survivability. So I get the question and I appreciate it, and we talk about it ad nauseum every year. Yeah. But more importantly, I think coaches have got to be willing to market their programs, add value to their programs, put butts in the seats, and make them.
See, but that's such a disingenuous answer, Jake Hart. Because how can you fill up a stadium of people to watch gymnastics when there is no understanding of how this is going on? I'm looking at a sport. I see a good routine. I see that routine scoring less than a routine that I don't think it was better than that. How can I justify that? And until we get to some kind of realization that that's an issue with gymnastics, we just are never going to move forward. Now, I don't know what's going on with my sound or my microphone. And maybe I was praising addicts too much. My mic decided to die on my ass right now. That would be hilarious. But the people in my neighborhood are doing fireworks, and it's just very disturbing and distracting to me right now. It's like it's hard for me to concentrate what's going on. It sounds like fucking I'm in the middle of a fucking war. And yes, I can't figure out what's going on with my sound. So what I'm going to do is in this show now, um, let y'all listen to where we're at. Yeah, it's definitely my microphone. I don't know what's going on with it. Let's see if y'all can hear me like this. I know it's not as good, but okay, y'all can hear me like this. Okay. So we can continue, child. I had to use my brain for a second.
To their athletic director. It's not about profitability. It's about generation of goodwill. Yes, you've got to be able to generate some money, whether you're profitable or not. But it's about generation of attention and goodwill in your community. And if you can do that, then we're going to be much safer and more viable for the long term.
Okay, first of all, he kind of ate with that response. It was kind of sassy, and I loved it. But I think he's right, honestly. Going back and forth about difficulty clearly isn't getting anywhere, so he's kind of real for that. But I will say his comparison to Simone and how things are on the elite side really got me thinking. I think normally I would tell you that I'm all for difficulty, but when you think about it from the perspective of one team or maybe two teams just absolutely dominating because they have so much difficulty, it makes you realize that you actually enjoy the parity of the sport. You enjoy that any team can go out there and win. That's what I love so much about college gymnastics. Like if I wanted to watch extreme difficulty, I would watch elite gymnastics. Or if you wanted to watch a complete blowout year after year, you watch Simone Biles. Right. And I think him phrasing it that, I remember sitting on the call with him just pondering, and I was like, wait a minute. You're right. I guess parity is something that I actually do enjoy about college gymnastics. And I think sometimes when judging isn't going the way that you want it to, that kind of gets lost in the conversation a little bit. And this is something that Meredith Policivic touched on as well. Not only the disadvantage that this could cause lower ranked teams who aren't in a Power 5 conference, but she also the parallel that it's not so much the difficulty that fans are actually craving, but parity and the fact that they can root for the underdog to pull off an upset on any given day of the week.
I guess what I can say.
Again. Oh my God, I don't know. Ashley and Brittany, I'm not trying to beef with y'all ever again. I'm just stating my opinion. I know. It's my microphone. My Bluetooth speaker then I know the volume will be. Oh. Give me. Can everybody give me 1 second? I don't know why I didn't think about this.
Connected.
Okay.
Say is our sport has never been better than it is right now. And so I am both a purist, but I'm also hugely for the growth of the sport, right? Phenomenal that Clemson started a program and was able to make the postseason in year one. Okay, because they did it right. They invested, they gave them a couple years to recruit, to train, all of those things. So a lot of these big schools should be able to look at that model and go, they're almost making money in year one. They're selling out. The Tennessees, the Indianas, the Texas schools, right? The South Carolinas of the world. We want growth. We want growth for our sport. And what is making the postseason so exciting is that it's more like.
Okay, I feel like I should read. So Anisha says it's much better. So I think it's much better, especially now that I have my speaker on. I know damn well y'all can hear it. I don't know why I didn't do it this way in the first place. Oh, because I wanted the microphone so y'all could hear me more clearly. But y'all can hear me. Y'all can hear me, right? So I'm going to rewind it just a tad bit. Not a lot. Because I want to get back to what Jay Clark says that I disagree with.
Created that. And most of the time, the right team wins. Most of the time. Not always. But now we're at a place where we've created parity and we constantly are complaining about the judges. Well, the judges are doing exactly what we told them to do. The judges don't separate because we hemmed them up. We talk out of both sides of our mouth a little bit. Like we want separation and we want reward for difficulty, but we dumb things down to the point where there can be no real separation. So we have to decide, this is where it's one of the greater frustrations for me every year is that, it's this constant conversation that's been going on for 20 plus years and there's no solution to it. As long as there's subjectivity in the sport, which it inherently will have, there's going to be controversy. So the question is, do you want the best team in the country, whoever that is in a given year, to be able to count a fall like Simone Biles can and still beat everybody because she's rewarded for the amount of difficulty that she does? Or do you want that team to know that as soon as they have a break that they have to count, the odds are they're going to lose to a lot of people, regardless of what they do in their other routines? That's kind of where we are. So I wouldn't argue one way or the other. I think.
And that's the point I wanted to. I'm so sorry I was fucking these peanuts up, y'all. I'm over here fucking these peanuts up. Y'all see my one cricket now? I don't know why. I just had one. And when I did it, it was straight. And it just grew on its own cricket. So when I take these nails off, I have another set coming. I have this exact same set. But I don't know where, why, how. But if y'all see my thumbs, the little rhinestones kept coming off. So what I did was get a different brand. They're supposed to look the exact same, but the brand is a little bit better. So, but overall, I was very hard on these nails, though. Like, I did a lot. Y'all see I changed my wig every fucking 2 or 3 days. So, I'm not complaining. I still would recommend if you went to Temu and got these nails, you check the link in the bio. But to buy these nails. They're great nails. Just don't be as hard on them as I was. And I would try the other brand who has the exact same nails. Hopefully they're just as good quality as these are. And I won't be as hard on them. And we're going to ride those out for a month. With that being said, thank you, Nisha. I just absolutely fucked up the thumbs. And they're press-ons and they're not expensive. They were like under $10. So I do have a Temu affiliate link that I should start doing. I have so much social media shit that I should start doing because of my Facebook account. Because I have so many followers on my Facebook account for whatever reason. When I say so many followers, over 3,000. But you know, I'm not the smartest of it. I'm so sorry, the podcast. I'm up here rambling.
I think, for me, that whole argument is not something we should be focused on anymore, because we're in a situation right now where NIL and revenue share and all this stuff has come in, and it's going to threaten the very existence of 30+% of our programs at some point. And if we don't stop bickering about judging and this stuff here, when right now we're at an all-time high popularity wise on television and everything else, and if we don't start focusing on how do we improve the value of our program on our campus and in our community. I'm not talking about TV ratings nationally. I'm talking about your footprint in your community and on your campus. That should be the number one overriding anything goes thing we have to focus on as coaches, as administrators and everything, if we want survivability. So I get the question and I appreciate it. And we've talked about it ad nauseum every year.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think coaches have got to be willing to market their programs, add value to their programs, put butts in the seats, and make themselves valuable to their athletic director.
And that's the point I was trying to make when y'all couldn't hear me. How are programs supposed to do that when how programs are supposed to do that when you are people who aren't fans like myself who would see gymnastics regardless? You're looking at a routine that looks great. That routine scores a 9.85. You're like, okay, a 9.85 must be a good score. You see another routine you see a visible error, and you're not even a gymnastics person, and you can see a visible error. And that routine scores a 9.95. You as a fan is going to be confused and upset and like, what's going on? This isn't fair. And that's what we're asking to fix. Not so much the judging, it's the disparity in what the judges give to the athletes. And without that, nothing else that you say exactly, Nisha. It's only 5 or 6 meets marketable in your community. And then y'all want to charge the community a stupid amount of fees to come to this damn gymnastics program when they barely even care about gymnastics. Like, sometimes with gymnastics, Jay Clark, I was on your side earlier. Now I'm arguing against you. These coaches and these people who have been in the oligarchy for so long, they are so lost in the sauce. They don't understand. It could be very simple. Instead of having one Georgia versus Alabama like it used to be back in the days, it could be several or 8 rival schools where you have a whole rivalry weekend in gymnastics where everybody turns up. Like, gymnastics, y'all have missed y'all mark so hard, trying so hard not to be a sport. Let's continue. Let me fast forward a little bit now that we're at where we were supposed to be at.
And that can ultimately impact the postseason and who moves on to nationals. The other side of the argument, for the most part, is attendance. You know, we see at NCAA's, which has been in Fort Worth for the last several years, attendance is a lot lower than what it was when it was on college campuses back in the day. And also for a lot of the regular season meets that they have at neutral sites, there's just lower attendance at those meets. So I think from talking to all the coaches, I noticed that was the common argument on the, we're in favor of keeping it on college campuses team. There are some other arguments to be made as well about, how it's determined what teams go where, or the increased cost of broadcasting at a neutral site. So we'll let the coaches have the floor here and share their thoughts. We're going to start with some of the coaches who made points that are in favor of keeping regionals on college campuses, and that would be Carly Dockendorf, Vince Murrow, KJ Kindler, Owen Field, Meredith Paul-Civic, and Jeff Graba.
I love that regionals is still played like on campuses. That's where the fan base is on campuses. And so you're going to fill the stands. And for a student athlete experience, I would rather go somewhere and have the stands filled than go to a neutral site and have 1,000 people there. When you look at people that are going to come to nationals, if you put the regionals and nationals at neutral sites, I think that it makes it harder for them to choose. Now, they're going to either go to regionals or they're going to go to nationals. They're probably not going to go to both. And when they're on campuses, you're going to fill the seats, and then those people can go to nationals at the end of the year. So I am a fan of it. I just think for the student athlete experience, energy is amazing, and you're not going to get that at neutral sites.
There's a significant difference when there is a crowd and when there isn't. And I've competed in arenas where, it's jumping in the audience and it's a lot of fun. Whether that's your home crowd or an away crowd, it's still a lot of fun. I'm in support of whatever brings us the biggest crowd, honestly. Whether that's a neutral site or at a home destination. I think we need, visibility, and, when it's on TV and there's no one in the stands, it doesn't really look great. So for me, I want to see full stadiums and full arenas and loud crowds, and that's what this sport is all about, or collegiate sports in general. So for me, I want the room shaking and rocking, feel a little bit of pressure, feel a little bit of nerves, because that's what makes sports fun.
I believe in a super regional. So I would love to see us do regionals on a college campus and super regionals. That means you'd go on to another weekend after the 36, and the 16 would go on to a different weekend the next weekend in 2 locations with 2 sessions of 8. And I believe the top seed should have first bid on that. If you look at other sports, women's basketball, women's volleyball, you bid out for those opportunities and you get them because it happens that year. So right now we bid 4 years out in advance for our opportunities. I'd love to see the top seeds have that opportunity to host and for that to continue so that we're on TV every single weekend and we stay in people's living rooms every single weekend instead of going on a 12-day hiatus, where you don't see.
First of all, that's y'all motherfucking issue right there. And yeah, I'm cussing Ezra. Turn the camera off. I'm just joking, bitch. You just cuss me out too all the time. Y'all so focused about being on motherfucking TV. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, gymnastics is not for the TV audience. It never has been and never will be. Gymnastics is for the internet. And y'all need to figure out how to bring gymnastics to the internet, to international viewers. Y'all may never sell out arenas in America because gymnastics just is not that sport over here in America. But put that shit on the internet, y'all can have millions of views, millions of eyes watching from all over the world. People from China would stay up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning just to watch the NCAA. Y'all are so stuck on gymnastics got to be on TV like football or like basketball. Gymnastics is for the internet. Gymnastics is way better in person, absolutely. But gymnastics is for the internet. That's why gym Twitter and gym Instagram and gym Facebook is so strong. That's your audience. Literally placate to your audience. I have never seen a sport who wants to go against their audience so badly. We hate Flip now, but people still pay for Flip now. If there was just one NCAA version of, what is that shit called? The NFL Network. You know, it's for me to do. So nobody steal my idea. It's patent pending. It's patent pending. But when I come up with it and find a way to get every network on one platform, and y'all just pay me $5 a month for it, y'all just better say thank you, Michaela, and support the Loves Gymnastics Network. Oh, I just put it out there. 2025. That's the goal. To turn the Loves Gymnastics Network into the NFL Network and to have one legitimate spot for every college gymnastics competition for that season. I'm putting that out there for myself, Lord. That's for me. Damn. They got their prayer earlier in the show. That's for me. Thank you, Lord. Let's continue.
See gymnastics. I would love that.
I like the meet being on campus, and I would go one step further. And I know I'm going to get tore up for this because we're Florida and the SEC and we're the big bad wolf. But I think we should move in a direction where the top 4 seeds get to host. And I think that if you are able to put in the work and the consistent performances throughout season to be one of the top 4 teams in the country, you should be given a true benefit in the postseason. I think most other sports, their postseason is structured in a way similar to that, where at least the top seeds have like first right of refusal for hosting privileges. And I think that if you really look over the past 10, 15 years, there is a decent amount of variety in the top, like even if you go to the top 8 teams, like if you did 8 sites of regionals with quad meets instead of 4 with 2 quads, I think that there's a decent amount of variety when you go out to those top 8 spots over the last 10, 15 years. Along those lines, like you're getting some variety, but you're still going to be going to schools that are able to provide a tremendous championship experience with a great fan showing. It's going to be good energy. They all have fantastic TV capabilities. They're used to broadcasting meets, whether it's on true television or streamed online. And there's just a lot that goes into like that championship atmosphere, where I think there's a lot of benefit to that.
I am all for college campuses, right? Because if we are going to grow, we need to get the fans to be engaged, right? We are hosting Big Fours this year with UCLA coming. We will have Jordan Childs in the building. That is huge for my community. And we have been building and building and building, and that meet is already almost sold out. You know, a couple of years ago, we had the Big Ten championships here. My season tickets, here's a fun fact for you. So coming from Utah, the last year I was at Utah, we had 9,800 season ticket holders. I come to Ohio State and I'm working with people and they're like, yeah, we've got 11. I was like, oh, okay, 1,100. They're like, no, 11.
Like literally 11.
I was like 11 people, like people. Do we know them? Do we send them Christmas cards? What are you talking about? 11 people. So the building has been extremely slow in Columbus. It is a football town, right? And we have the Columbus Crew who just won the MLS Cup. So it's been a slow build. Really excited that we've sold out meets twice now, and our arena holds close to 4,000. It's an amazing arena. I don't know if you guys have been down to Covello. You've got to come down to Covello.
Oh, we haven't actually.
It is the most, first of all, everybody has their best meet of the year, which is not great for us, but it's such a great arena. But we've sold out 2 meets. We're almost sold out this year. I went from 11 season ticket holders. Then it was like COVID, or I think the next year I went to like 34 or something. It was very exciting. It was like dozens and dozens and 3. And then we went to like 100 or something. Then it was COVID. Then we went to 200. Then last year we went to 400. This year my goal was 600. We're at over 750 season tickets right now.
Wow.
I mean, that is because we're keeping college sports on college campuses. You know, I showed up to regionals at Oklahoma last year, and we're in the lobby and there's people there. I'm like, oh, whose family are you with? And nobody. They were fans that came to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We had a family go to LSU that I did not know. They showed up in our lobby. This is amazing stuff for Ohio State gymnastics. And that is because we're keeping meets on campus.
Take other external forces out and just say experience of the student athlete. It's better to be on campus for a student athlete, even a visiting team, because there's a lot more invested. Our last 2 years would just go over it. Like we were at UCLA and we were at Cal, and we did not have great meets, but the experience was phenomenal. They had great fan support. It was a crazy environment. We went to both finals with our team, watched it. We wanted to be in it, but if you're not in it, you go support it. And it was a fun thing to be a part of. So I worry about that going to neutral sites. I also don't know if it's true that there's a home field advantage it's quite as significant. It is a home field advantage for going on your own equipment. And it is because you have your own fan base. I'll say that. It's easier to travel 30 miles or 45 miles or an hour or 2 hours than it is to be the home team. You don't get some of the leeway that you do when you're a visiting team, but it is difficult to fly, especially time zones for both directions. So I don't think it gives us more parity necessarily to go to a neutral site. I also feel now we got to open it up. ESPN, do we get the coverage if we go to a neutral site? Because right now they're piggybacking off of Cal's ability to broadcast with their people. The ESPN is not flying their crew out to LSU. They're using LSU's student crew or athletic department crew to broadcast it, and they're piggybacking off of that broadcast. So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they are not bringing trucks. So if you bring a truck, you're doing a full broadcast. They'll do that periodically throughout the year, but many of these SEC matchups are broadcast by our people, and or at least some of the camera work is our people. There's a mixture, and they will definitely feel ESPN will have a financial impact if we go to neutral sites. I think there's also that people have to understand is, do you want it on TV? Do you want to continue to grow the viewership fan base? I think those are difficult conversations to have. And then, do you want an empty arena that's on TV? Do you want a full arena that's on TV? What do you want for your athletes? And in reality, let's say I'm going up against Oklahoma at Oklahoma. I've still got to beat Oklahoma or one of the other, every other team, or I've got to go to a neutral site and still beat Oklahoma and or every other team. So I don't know. I'm satisfied with what our product is right now, because I don't think we've reached its full potential. And I don't want to change until I know the change is better than what we have.
Liz Crandall-Howell was, I feel like, kind of in the middle of this, but then it sounded like she was leaning more towards neutral site. She obviously has concerns with fan attendance. That was a big point that was brought up. But also, she brought up some points about the long distance travel and how that impacts her team, especially when they are constantly having to go to the East Coast for regionals. So take a listen.
I definitely think that meets are more fair when you are at a neutral site. The fear behind going to neutral sites is the fan base and making sure that we get people. I would love for us to take the risk to build something that is so appealing to fans, and that it's going to be in these places year after year, that they know, okay, I'm going to this place for these regionals. I would like to see more fairness in the way that the meets are geographically distributed. I mean, outside of this year hosting, we've spent most of our time in the last decade on the East Coast for regionals. And often that means that our team is missing school a lot more than other teams. Like they're changing their sleep schedule by a lot. They're going out a day early. They're missing more school. And so it just, puts them at a bit of a disadvantage. I don't think we need to do that. Like, I just think that it's with some work and some faith that the people will still come support the meets. We can build something that thinks more in terms of what's best for the student athletes in terms of fairness and parity, and also in terms of like what's best.
With the neutral site issue, in my opinion, it's where you have the neutral sites. That's the issue. Is, yeah, it probably would be cheaper to do a neutral site in, I don't know, Fort Worth, Texas. But who the fuck want to go down Fort Worth, Texas, when you could have did it in Dallas, Texas, or you could have did it in Houston, Texas, or Austin, Texas? Why Fort Worth? And that's the issue with these neutral sites. Like the quad meet that y'all had in Vegas, that was cool because people could go to Vegas. Who the fuck want to go to damn Arkansas? No offense, Nisha. Who the fuck want to go to Gainesville, Florida? I mean, that's where Florida is at, right? I'm just saying, like, the neutral spots would work if they just was more strategically planned. That's my issue. Part two with the neutral sites is if they weren't centrally located, unless it was like a good spot. Like, for whatever reason, y'all believe Fort Worth, Texas is a good spot. It ain't, but y'all think it is. Let's go.
What's best for their health and the travel, what is safe, because it's already a lot.
And then we'll end off with Jay Clark and Jordan Weber, who are in favor of going to neutral sites.
I go back and forth on this one.
Yeah, we say that with you just having hosted a regional.
Yeah. I think ultimately, I think of regionals as the first round of the national championship.
Yeah.
In our format, that's truly what it is. And so I do think of eventually moving to neutral sites and hopefully getting it on podium is what I would hope for our sport. There are lots of things that go into that and, who's going to pay for it and things like that. But I think ultimately that would be where I would lean. I think that would be closer to what a lot of other sports are doing and the way they format their postseason. So I would be a big advocate for that.
100% they should be neutral. And as that goes along with the last question, because we have created this level of parity, right? It is a huge advantage for any team to be at home. I don't care who it is. You're on your equipment, you're in front of your fans. Equipment feels different when you go places. It just does. So it is, I 100% think we should be at neutral sites. Now that we have this format that is, as I've called it, a meat grinder, which is what it is. It's, getting to the semifinals, the final 8 is easily as hard now as it used to be to get to the Super 6. Coming through and getting to the round of 16 is a huge accomplishment. I mean, it's huge. And I think it makes it more fair. I also think a lot of the same cast of characters get awarded regionals a lot. I don't think that's fair to a lot of other teams. I think we should be at neutral sites for television purposes. I think to increase that marketability. And, I think it should be run like the basketball tournament. Once you get to a certain place, it moves to neutral sites, and there's ways to do it that we discuss a lot. And I think there's some groundswell of support for doing it. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Well, do you think there'd be any concern for like fans and people not showing up if it was a neutral site? Because that's the
argument. Don't show up anyway. Like the hardest sell, we'll average 12,600 for a dual meet here, and we're lucky to get 6 or 7 for a regional. I don't know why that's a huge crowd. So regional, for whatever reason, has always been a tough sell. It's selling better now because I think the format is more intriguing for people in the 2-day format. So
y'all really don't understand why people don't want to buy tickets to regionals. I'm pretty sure a dual meet is probably like $10 to get into that thing. For a regional ticket, y'all want $300. That is why people don't want to go to regionals. The reason why people don't want to go to nationals, Again, for a dual meet, it's probably $10 to get into it. For now, national championships, it doesn't jump up to $50, $75. No, y'all want $300 and $400 for good seats. You could get in for about $200 though. You could get in for about $200, but still, for about $150 if you in the nosebleeds. But still. Oh shit, Nisha said regionals was 25. My bad, everybody. My bad. Still, 25 is a lot. I'm gonna stand on business on this one. 25 is still a lot. When the damn home meets is probably free. $5. $10 for a good seat. Now you want me to pay $15 more dollars to see some people I ain't never known before.
And so it's selling better. I think Arkansas did pretty well on sales last year. We were there and it seemed like they did okay. But yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know, put it in a destination city where people can do, take a family 3 or 4 day long weekend deal, put it in places like Nashville and Tampa and New Orleans and places where we're trying to move the Southeastern Conference championship too, for those very reasons. Put it in marquee arenas, make it a bigger deal than it is, instead of being on someone's campus in their gym. I just think kind of diminishes the whole championship feel.
So there you have it. Obviously, we mentioned this at the very top. These topics are multifaceted and there really is no right answer, which is why some of these topics have been discussed for years and years with very little movement or change. I think depending on whatever coach we talked to that day, they would have me on their side. And then I'd talk to someone else a couple days later and I'd be like, wait a minute, solid point. Totally. I went into this with my opinion set in stone. I was like, this is.
So that's Ashley and Brittany, and that's the All Things Gymnastics podcast. So yeah, what do y'all think? I think they did a really good job with their coaches roundtable. I think they do a very good job of interviewing. I think they get a lot of stuff out of the people. If you want a very professional platform, but you get some tea, I mean, there we go. We got a lot of tea in that episode. So yeah, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it with you all. I hope you all are having a safe, happy, and fun New Year. If you want to watch or listen to the full episode, because we only listened to about half of the episode here tonight, even though it was an hour and a half and we've been up here for 2 hours and a half, because that means we've been talking for the other half of the damn time. Listen to it. It's on their All Things Gymnastics platform on Spotify and Apple. It was really good. I enjoyed listening to it with you all, everybody. You all go off and enjoy your night, celebrate New Year's. Everybody, don't drink and drive. Don't get shot up here in nobody's club. Don't create no child with nobody. Hey, John Perry. Hi, friend. How are you doing? Don't go out here and have no kids with nobody you don't know. Don't be nobody baby mama or baby daddy tonight. For my gays and the trans. Don't go out here sucking no random dick that you don't know this person. Don't accept no kind of energies in 2025. At least know his name before you put dick in your mouth, girl. For my married people, give your husband some head tonight. I mean, when was the last time you sucked this dick really good? Give your husband some head. For the men, eat your wife pussy out. When was the last time you put your tongue deep in her clitoris and made her skirt all over your face? Have some fun. It's New Year's. We're in 2025, bitch. Who the hell thought we would have lived this damn long to be in 2025? Not I. If you have some pets, people is doing fireworks, so be ready to comfort them motherfuckers because they better be crying and shit. For whatever reason, on the New Year's Eve, people like to shoot in the air, so be careful of that. Don't drink and drive. Again, people like to get lit. Talking about somebody I can figure out his name later. No, sir, you get the name first, and then you do what you got to do. We all have to go to nationals in 2025 together, so I need everybody to be here. And yeah, go back and watch the show. I have it up on Twitter in about an hour and a half. I'm going to sit up here and watch What If. I should watch Wicked. I should watch Wicked, shouldn't I? Was Wicked even good? I don't like musicals. That's why I've never it's not like I never wanted to watch it. It's just I don't like musicals. The Wizard of Oz. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't care for The Wizard of Oz. I like The Wiz because I'm black. So, I mean, it's just I don't know. But Marvel have What If on Disney Plus. And I'm going to catch up on my What If because I know Storm was in the last episode. So, I love you all. Go and listen to All Things Gymnastics now. And if I don't put the link in the description after the video airs, remind me, somebody in the comments, be like, oh, girl, link the video. So, you know, I ain't trying to have beef with them girls. I had beef with them girls for addicts. I don't want no smoke. Ashley and Brittany, I love you all. We are all gymnastics family. I don't want no smoke. And with that being said, I'm so stupid. And with that being said, that's the show. I love you all. Deuces. I see you all. Oh, Thursday, where we will start our NCAA preview. Hopefully me, Shayna, Oscar, Ezra, some combination of us will get together. And we will get together and preview some of the top meets that for season 1. I mean, this is the first week of damn NCAA gymnastics this week. So, yeah. Everybody get hyped. Oscar, Ezra, Shayna, y'all bitches better be ready on Thursday when I get off of work. Outro! And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to season 2 of the Loves Gymnastics Podcast, brought to you by the Loves Gymnastics Network. Brought to you by the creator of this, Michaela Loves Gymnastics, and her co-host, Oscar, aka Gymnastics Saves Lives, Miss Shayna, and Ezra. And together, we bring you the Loves Gymnastics Podcast. Season 2 begins now. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We love and appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, bring more people into the community. It's NCAA 2025 time. Let's go, girls. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of